Year 11, so we're continuing with our language work this week. So what I would like you to start off with today is mind mapping all of the language features that you can remember. And once you've written down the language features, what I'd like you to do is to try and provide an example for each one. So you can see here is my mind map. So language features is going in the middle. Simile is the first language feature that I have remembered. And then I've provided two examples. Obviously, you only need to provide one. So his roar was like a lion's, and he was as tall as a tree. Okay, so simile being a comparison using like or as. So give yourself a good 5 to 10 minutes on this. Try and remember as many language features as you can, as they are going to help you in the next task. So today we're going to be having a look at paper 2, question 2. Okay. So this is a language focused question, so very similar to paper 1, question number 2. And we are going to be having a think about what is this question asking you to look for, okay? Now, on the question, it gives you 4 bullet points as to the things it wants you to think about. So it says it wants you to think about phrases and words, it wants you to think about language techniques and sentence forms, okay? So I just want us to have a quick think about what these actually mean, okay? Now, we've spoken about these in class quite a lot and how there are kind of different levels of analysis for each of these. So in the easiest form of things, you'd want to talk about the words or the phrases, okay? So for that, we'd be thinking about adjectives, we'd be thinking about verbs and imagery, okay? So if you know you're somebody who really struggles with language features and you're not sure how to recognise them, it's absolutely fine for this question to talk about adjectives, verbs or imagery, okay? So adjectives are obviously describing words, so thinking about the brown table, verbs thinking about the action, so punching, kicking, and imagery being a specific kind of picture that they want to paint. So is it a beautiful summer's day or is it a grey and gloomy day? Okay, so if you know that you are someone who struggles with language features, talking about words and phrases is absolutely fine. So don't try and push yourself to look for a language feature if you know that you struggle with that. And words and phrases can get you a grade 4. So don't think to yourself, well, I've got to talk about language features because I want a grade 4. Words and phrases will do that. It's about your comment on effect that helps you to develop the marks. So obviously the next thing it suggests you could talk about is language techniques, and that's where your language features come in. So if you think back to the do now, I'm hoping that you've written down similes and metaphors and personification and alliteration, rhetorical questions. Those are all language features that obviously we find quite often in texts. So similes being a comparison using like or as, metaphors being a comparison to something that it cannot be. Personification, you know, bringing an inanimate object to life with human characteristics. You can think about onomatopoeias, so words that imitate sounds, rhetorical questions, so questions that don't require answers. There's lots of language features that you could talk about. Now, just because you notice that it's a simile doesn't necessarily mean it's answered the question. You have got to think very carefully about what the implications are on the reader. So why have they described it to be like that? What does that make you think? How does that make you associate things with it? You know, and then how does that lead on? And then the last thing they suggest you talk about is sentence forms. Now, I would suggest that we don't talk about sentence forms because they're quite difficult. So you've got to be able to pick out the different sentence types, and then you've got to think about, you know, how they've been used. The one that I would say that is quite easy to think about is like one-word sentences. So if you are somebody who can recognise a one-word sentence, you might want to think about the implications of it being one word. Is it straight to the point? You know, is it a word that you think particularly expresses what's happening in that paragraph quite well? But otherwise, I would stay away from sentence forms. There's always going to be plenty to talk about in terms of words and phrases and language features. You don't need to put yourself into an uncomfortable position of having to talk about, you know, sentence forms when you might not be comfortable with that. So, as with any other, you know, exercise, you do have to read a source. Now, I'm hoping that you're remembering that obviously for paper 2, you've got 2 non-fiction resources. This question will only be focused on one of those sources, so they'll tell you specifically which source to look at. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes now to have a read through this yourself. Again, it's really important that you're practicing your reading skills at home. We know that you can't have a reader in the exam to read through this for you, so you've got to practice reading and understanding. There's the glossary here, look. So if there's any words that you do not understand, they are explained there. You'll notice that they have little numbers. So wherever it's been used in the text, then you'll look at that little number and that'll tell you which meaning it is. Okay, so give yourself a good 10 minutes to read through this and understand what's happening. Okay then, so here is the question that we're going to have a look at over the next couple of lessons. I want you to write this into your books for me because we're just going to annotate the question, okay? So, as a reminder, this is paper 2, question 3, okay? So we've had a look at the whole of paper 1, we've moved on to paper 2. Last lesson we had a look at paper 2, question 2. This lesson we're having a look at paper 2, question 3. So it says you need to refer only to source A, which is the source that I've just had you read, lines 3 to 9. So you're probably thinking, why have I asked you to read the whole thing when these are the only lines that you need to look at? However, it's really good practice. You need to get into the habit of reading the whole thing first. It also helps with your understanding. You know, if you've read the whole thing, you understand what they're talking about, then you can be more specific in your language analysis. So this is the part of the extract that you're going to focus on. Obviously, I've put it on this slide so you haven't got to keep slipping back to the others. So the question says, how does the writer use language to show the behaviour of the puppies? Okay, so this bit here, so how does the writer use language, is the question stem. This bit's always going to be the same. This is how it will start in the exam. Okay, and then it's the ending that is the specific focus for this question. So this question wants you to think about the behaviour of the puppies. It is worth 12 marks. Okay, so that means it's worth slightly more marks than paper 1, question 2, where I asked you to write me 2 peak paragraphs. So what that means is for this question, you should be aiming for 3 peak paragraphs. So in terms of then planning your response, you need to find 3 examples, 3 quotes from this part of the extract to answer the question. Okay, so what we are going to spend the rest of the lesson doing is exactly that. So I have created a little table for you. Okay, so what I would like you to be thinking about is, first of all, which examples are you going to choose? What language feature or word or phrase or sentence form are you discussing? And the comment on the effect. So for example, appear 16 frisky Dalmatian puppies. Okay, so I'm thinking about the adjective frisky. So the adjective frisky means to be playful and energetic. It makes me think the puppies are a handful, they're energetic and young. Okay, so that's all I want you to do in today's lesson. So you need to draw a table like this. It needs to have 3 quotation boxes. I'm happy for you to use my first one, but you need to find 2 of your own. So you're thinking about the puppy's behaviour. So how is the writer able to show you how the puppies are behaving through that extract? Okay, and this should be finished by the end of this lesson so that you can use it in the next lesson to help you answer the question. Make sure that you answer the Show My Homework quiz. Again, if there's any questions or concerns, if there's anything you don't understand, please do just send me an email and I'm more than happy to help.